This right here is an Apple PowerBook G4, a 15.2-inch laptop originally released in January of 2001. It was Apple's first and last notebook to be made largely out of titanium, which made it incredibly thin and lightweight for the time, opening the door for some amusingly cheeky marketing material. If looks could kill, the new PowerBook G4 would make Apple the nation's leading defense contractor, wrote an unnamed author from Detroit News. Like they literally just put that on the front page. Okay, this thing's heavy. The titanium PowerBook, more lovingly referred to as the TiBook, was one of Apple's very last PowerPC laptops, infamous for both being an incredibly forward-thinking machine for the time, as well as for having incredibly poor durability.
Oh. Well, that was a bad idea.
But we'll get into that later. My goal for today is pretty simple. I want to find out just how well, if at all, one of these old laptops can actually integrate into my daily life and workflow. You see, it's easy to get spoiled by modern computers. My PC here has 32 times the RAM, 12 times the physical CPU cores, and I'm not even sure if there's a fair comparison to be made between the GPUs here, but I'm also fascinated by the capabilities of what used to be really high-end machines back in their day, and I can't help but to think that there might still be some life left in these old systems. This easily looks like it could be a mid to late 2000s laptop with its still impressively thin bezels and classy industrial design, with this wide edge contrasted by the transparent black keyboard and silver gray palm rest. The keyboard still feels snappy and has just the right amount of travel for both quick bursty typing and longer sessions, but on the other hand, the trackpad feels decidedly vintage, not having multi-touch or even a method to right-click on stuff. But that's not to say there isn't plenty to like here. The 3:2 aspect ratio feels shockingly modern by today's standards, and it seems like a trend that we've only very recently started to see again on laptops. And considering what our expectations have become thanks to modern ultra-portable notebooks, the I/O looks pretty forgiving as well. The G4 you see here even has a VGA connector, which is a really nice touch for a professional machine in my opinion. Unfortunately, herein lies one of my first admissions of guilt. As I alluded to before, the TiBook has a bit of a reputation as Apple's worst laptop in terms of being designed to not decapitate itself without warning. Thankfully, the hinges on these two examples here are in pretty good shape, but I had to buy 7 of these laptops in order to actually get to this point.
What have I done?
Later models of the TiBook featured a DVI connector for your external display rather than VGA, and also offered a whole host of other improvements like processors up to 1 GHz, higher resolution displays, better GPUs, and most importantly, improved durability. That said, I'll be doing all the fun stuff with this 2002 1 GHz model. After maxing this thing out with its highest supported 1 GB of RAM, airport wireless card, and a nice 128 GB SSD in this SATA to PATA enclosure, I booted into macOS 10.4.11 Tiger, which isn't even the newest version of macOS that this system can run, but as far as features and usability go, I think it strikes a pretty good balance. Tiger was just one version away from being the last version of macOS to support PowerPC Max, so we still get a lot of those modern creature comforts like a decently laid out Finder window and support for some universal binary applications that were designed with Intel Macs in mind. Overall, I've been playing around with this for a couple solid weeks now, and I'm actually really impressed with how well old versions of macOS hold up today. For instance, one thing I spend a lot of time doing is writing poor code for various projects that I swear I'll finish one day, and I was actually really impressed to see just how extensive the tools offered out of the box on these Macs are for software development. Tiger ships with Xcode, available as an optional software installation on DVD, which of course is Apple's own IDE for Mac development. It offers the ability to easily start making apps in things like C++ using GCC, or even Java applications, which as a self-proclaimed GigaChad C# programmer doesn't make me feel welcome, but it's certainly enough to waste plenty of time with. It might not be a super fancy Electron-based text editor that eats 300 megabytes of RAM at idle, but overall, writing code actually feels pretty good on the G4, and it's fun working within limitations of older runtimes and compilers if you want to make programs that will work on any kind of super old hardware. And for those of you that might be interested, I think it's pretty amusing that the IME in Tiger, which allows you to input characters from other languages that don't fit on a regular QWERTY keyboard, is functionally identical to the one in modern Macs, so if you have a need to comment your code in Japanese, you'll be covered there too. For something more important and serious though, I needed to know if I could play some games on this laptop, since I can't really make it through the week without the obligatory Minecraft addiction kicking in. And if you've been watching YouTube at all lately, it seems like Minecraft on old Macs is a pretty hot topic right now. Shout out to the one dude in my Discord server that watched this entire catastrophe unfold in real time, by the way. If anyone else wants to see me absolutely lose it, link is in the description. But I didn't expect to get very far. Downloading a copy of Minecraft 1.5.2 optimized for G4s off Macintosh Garden and installing that onto my SSD, it actually started up and ran pretty decently, hanging somewhere around the mid-20s while I'm not generating any new chunks in single player, which I'll admit is more than I was expecting. It was at this point that I decided to push my luck. I saw one other download on Macintosh Garden for a G5 optimized build of Minecraft 1.8.9, and while I wasn't expecting it to run at all, it just worked perfectly fine without a single complaint. This put me in a little bit of a rush since I hadn't actually been planning on talking about this. I was just messing around with it right before shooting the footage for this video, so I honestly didn't have any time to prepare or do anything interesting. Unfortunately, I couldn't get on any multiplayer servers. I was getting hit with these null pointer exceptions, which I figured were because I wasn't authenticated, so I went down a massive rabbit hole, which involved setting up a second router for the PowerBook to connect to my network and tunneling it through an SSL proxy to get myself the ability to talk to the official authentication servers. That got me a little further, and along with installing root certificates from a newer version of macOS, I had ironically given my PowerBook the ability to navigate the vast majority of websites over HTTPS, which was pretty cool, but without any way to actually interact with the Microsoft authentication servers properly, I decided to put this idea on hold. For now. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to just replace my desktop with this laptop though, there is one glaring issue that we need to talk about, and that is the internet. Sometimes I do unfortunately need to go online. If I didn't, I wouldn't be making this video in the first place, and while these computers can still do plenty of things that we take for granted today, the internet has moved far past the hardware of the early 2000s. Since I could now get on the internet using the built-in Safari browser, I tried that and it went about as well as you can expect. Lots of things were broken and everything else was unbearably slow. It's not like I would sign into most things with this anyway, seeing as I'm literally using an operating system from 2007 and I do actually like to not become a victim of identity fraud. But this really isn't any kind of a surprise to me. I had a hard time using the internet on my vastly more powerful dual processor PowerBook G5 with an actual modern browser, and I wouldn't really expect anything better from these machines. The internet is really not very efficient in its current form, and I know I could install Linux to get things running a lot better, which I have been meaning to experiment with, given that I even partitioned my drive in preparation, but that might be better left to its own video. I think it's pretty clear that a 20-year-old computer can't really replace my desktop computer, and as self-evident as that might have been, I mean, this thing can't even load an HD video, let alone edit one, I don't think I wanted to believe that at first. You can do a lot with these old computers, and amazing software design has kept these machines feeling snappy for the longest time. With an SSD, I'm shocked at how quick the boot times are, despite the very slow hard drive interface. All in all, I really enjoyed my time with the titanium PowerBook G4. It offers a lot that you really just don't see in modern notebooks, yet it had to contend with the growing pains of bringing the Mac from a boring black plastic computer to that distinctly Apple design language that got them from the brink of bankruptcy and forged a $1 trillion tech empire. But at this point, I'm starting to sound like one of those tech journalists, so I think I'll end it right there. Thanks for watching! Let me know what you thought, and if you have any fun projects or ideas for things to do with these old PowerPC Macs, because they're really such a cool platform, and I think they have a lot of potential. I hope you liked it, and as always, have a good one. Oh, it didn't show the record indicator.